the valleys are where the growth is. I'm always reminding myself of that. Like whenever there's valleys, you keep freaking moving. You enjoy the view from the mountaintop, but you're going right back down. You're going to do another climb.
Every great business begins with a bold idea. Welcome to Mission Entrepreneurship, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of extraordinary entrepreneurs who've defied the odds. Discover the relentless spirit and creative minds of those who dared to innovate and take risks. Together, we'll reveal the grit and determination it takes to achieve the unthinkable mission of entrepreneurship. If you choose to accept it. Welcome back to another episode of Mission Entrepreneurship. I'm joined today with Reggie Ordonez, who is the founder of Forward Brands and the director of programs at Warrior Rising, which is a fantastic program. I'm your host, Stephen Allman, and I just can't wait to dive into this one and get to know you a little bit better, Reggie. So how are you doing today?
Hey, man, I'm doing really great. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Looking forward to just having a good conversation.
Yeah. All right. So first of all, one thing I would like to say as a veteran myself and entrepreneur, once I found the Warrior Rising program, I was a little bit blown away. It was just awesome. The language used, the way that things were spoke, the more, how do you say, the more direct. Because, you know, as vets, we really just like direct communication. Just what is it? What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? All right, drive on. Let's do it. Give us like a little brief overview of Warrior Rising and then also your brand, Forward Brands.
Yeah, man, that'd be great. Well, Warrior Rising, man, an awesome organization, 501c3 nonprofit organization, started by Jason Van Camp, former Army Green Beret in 2015. And, 10-year anniversary this year, which is kind of a big deal, right? Really, the gist of it was there's definitely this period that we all go through as veterans, former military, transitioning out of the military, you're actually wondering, like, what's next? And what is it that I want to do? And that path for Jason was entrepreneurship. And he saw this way of, like, taking a 5-paragraph order that most of us are very familiar with in the military, which speaks to kind of what you're saying about, like, this direct way of, like, just help me understand it. Let me know what I need to know. And it takes that 5-paragraph order and puts it into business speak. So we're going to talk about different ways that you can start a business, and we're going to do it in terms that you understand to meet you where you are, right? So this is 40 on-demand modules called the Warrior Academy. So anybody could go to warriorrising.org and click Become a Vetrepreneur, and you'll see the Warrior Academy. And those 40 courses are on demand at your time, at your leisure. Whenever you're done with that, the next step in the process is to go through Warrior University. So we're going to take a little bit of the things that you've learned, and now we're going to actually put it into business speak. We partner with some universities, Grand Valley State University in Michigan, and it's 8 weeks and it's online, right? And from there, we're going to select anywhere from 8 to 12 entrepreneurs about 3 to 4 times a year, to go to one of our business showers. So that's a business pitch competition. We're going to connect you with some folks. We're going to really just wrap our arms around you and give you everything that you need to be successful. And after that engagement, some are going to win money. Everyone's going to go home with something, and you'll get paired with a mentor for the next 6 months. So that's kind of like in a nutshell how we do things at Warrior Rising. We've had a lot of really great entrepreneurs go through our programs, some still active today, some, not, and that's okay, right? What we want to do is make sure that people make an informed decision about what they're getting into. And we want to meet entrepreneurs where they are at whatever that stage of life is. And for veteran entrepreneurs, military spouses, we're familiar with what that could look like in that period and that season of transition, because we've mostly been there ourselves. Almost everybody on the team is a former active duty service member, or they were in law enforcement and had to transition to something else. So the community really gets it. And I'm really, really thankful for that. Forward Brands is my own company. I work with founders to clarify their brand strategy. So, and this is really important for any founder that's listening, right? So, you always hear about the problem that you solve. Who are you solving it for? Define your target audience and go help solve that problem for that audience. And you build something and you hope that people come. And then you start maybe getting some money and you got to start thinking about operations and like how you're going to scale and all this other stuff. And usually whenever you're not growing fast enough, founders will go and hire a marketing agency, right? Because I need help with getting more money. I need help with ads. I need help with all this. And I'm telling you right now, like if you don't have a brand strategy before you do any of that stuff, you might as well just light your money on fire, right? So what I do as a brand strategist is I'm going to take a deep look at your target audience, who your customers are. I'm going to understand who your customers are. I'm going to go with you through that process if you don't know, which I hope that you would know, right? But we're going to refine that and we're going to really lay it out to where not only do I understand who they are, but I understand how they think and what's causing them this emotional distress in their life and why they need you, whatever that is. I'm going to look at the competition that's out there. So who's currently out there that's addressing these issues that these customers are having, but still leaving a gap in the market in some way, shape, or form. What are they doing at this moment in time? And how is this going unaddressed for these people that we're trying to help, right? That's step 2. And step 3 is I'm going to take all of that. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to shake it up like it's in a bottle, and I'm going to figure out how to position you in the market. So when I say position, really what it means is how does that customer perceive you and how do they think of you when they hear your brand and your name? What feeling do they get? Like how do I position that? And then lastly is the message. So now that I understand all that, I understand how to think, I understand how to position you, I understand what's out there. Now we need to actually craft a message that's going to resonate, and that's going to live on your website. It's going to live in the ads. It's going to live in all these places where you're going to have touch points with your audience, right? So those are the key things I do. The touch points is really like if you're going fishing, where are the fish, right? They're not in the like 10. What do they say? 100% of the fish are in 10% of the lake or something like that. Or not the lake. Yeah, the lake.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of the same with what we're doing here. I want to make sure that we're actually getting you on fish, so get you on the right place. All that to say, because I've been talking a lot. That's what I do in a nutshell with Forward Brands, but I've been in the veteran entrepreneurship space since 2018, and I've learned a lot along the way. I've been doing programs, I've dabbled in marketing, I've worked in operations, and I've helped with telling stories. So like all this stuff kind of comes together to where we are today.
All right. So on the Forward brand things, then I have to ask you about my own personal brand and kind of how I went through that process as well, and to see if I'm on par here a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
I started a business years and years and years ago that I wasn't morally happy with, honestly, because what happened was I made a lot of money, but it led me down a really dark path. And when I got, through that, I kind of put together, but I had for the first time I had like a lot of money sitting in the bank, and I honestly didn't know what to do with it. So an ad for an off-grid piece of property just popped up, and I was like, the hell with it, let's do it. And then I went out here in a car hauler, and I was just sleeping in a car hauler, shooting rounds out the back to keep the coyotes from stealing my food, and started building. I built this whole off-grid oasis out here. Built everything myself, and somebody was like, "Oh, well, you're living my dream," and I'm like, "Well, I got all the stuff. I might as well just start building that dream for people." So, first, what happened was I'm trying to think of your steps here. What was the first step?
Your customers, understanding your customer,
understanding the customer, right? So I can custom design solar power grids. I have a Bobcat. I can do all your land for you, everything. And I started to think about it. It's like, okay, who's my customer? Every solar company out there will be like, oh, green, we're going green. We're just the green stuff. And I was like, well, no, my customer are the people who want to get away from the city, the people that are scared right now, the people that want to make sure that they have something that can't be taken away from them. Mm-hmm. So I was like the customer who's looking for freedom. And then what was step 2?
Competition. What else is out there?
Competition. All right. That was where I started finding everybody's like green this, green that. And all of them want to take the easy route, which was on grid systems because you can finance them. You can't finance off grid. And I was like, nobody's hitting this off grid market of all these people who want to be off grid. And I started looking, and all the competition always goes to the dark side and goes and does corporate because there's more money there. So I was like, okay, my customer is the people like I kind of define my customer, then the competition, no one is doing off grid. Like, and if they do off grid, they're doing like little kits and little like small stuff. They're not actually like really designing something for an individual. And so what was step 3?
Your position.
My position.
How they think about you.
Oh,
whenever they see your brand, what is it that they think of?
So what we started doing was we started to make videos and started to make stuff with me, my dogs out here off grid, just making all these little videos showing me, us as this family who lives off grid, lives, eats, and breathes this stuff, showing our lives, how enjoyable it is. So when people see me, or I take my dogs to the job site with me, so my dogs will be chilling with me at the job site. I have 2 Malinois German Shepherd mixes. And then our message, we came down and broke it up. What are we doing? Like, so it's, we provide freedom through self-sustainability in order to preserve and protect American values, or traditional American values. And it's like, we want to speak more to the people who want freedom than the people that are looking to save money or be green, because it's off grid. Like, you got to change your whole life around the sun and everything. We're not selling you anything easy, you know? So I was that.
Yeah, man. Hey, that's a great start off the cuff, you know. It's good. And then I would even go back and say, like, with step 1, it's like, well, who's going to pay for that? You know what I mean? So I understand what you're doing and it's all good and everything. And you had a successful run at it. So you probably know that, right? And it's for everyone that's listening that is digging deeper. You know, it's very much like, well, tell me about the people that are going to pay for that. You know, where do they live? What is it they're facing? The challenges that they're facing? Do they have the income to pay for that stuff? And if they don't, you know, like, there's a lot of people with dreams and there's a lot of people with aspirations, and that's not wrong, you know. But as a founder and someone that's going to do this stuff, you got to get real serious about that. Like, I need to focus on the folks that are willing to pay for this now, you know, and so that's where your efforts go, because time is money, and you got bills to pay and you got things to do. So you need revenue.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I want to continue on, and I want to learn about Reggie.
Yeah.
What was what can you talk about basically your childhood into military, or just give us that whole kind of pathway that led you to where you are right now? Because one of the big thing I like to do for the audience, I think one of my biggest messages, just get up and do something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be what you want. The fact is what I've learned through interviewing entrepreneurs is the pathway was never clear.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So I grew up in a very rural town, Bowie, Arizona, population of about like anywhere from 500 to 800 people. You know, small town off of Interstate 10, right before you get into New Mexico, heading east. You know, so my grandfather was a cotton farmer. You know, some of my best memories were as a kid, you know, growing up on the farm. My mom and my dad was a Marine, you know, and I remember, like, my earliest years, he was stationed in Adak, Alaska. And so we didn't go with him to that place. I just remember being with my grandparents mostly in, like, my early years. As I started to grow up, you know, I just remember I was actually a troublemaker, man. So got in a little bit of trouble. I ended up, you know, getting in, doing some of the wrong things, but hey, that's okay. It really shaped and molded me into who I am today. I did a detour to Alliance, Nebraska. I did a high school in Nebraska, went and lived with my aunt and uncle for my high school years. And I remember when September 11th happened, I kind of like just snapped out of it, man. I was like, there's more to life than where I'm going and what I'm doing. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And maybe this is something that I could actually spend some time kind of like, I don't know, making up for the years where I haven't really got it right. I remember thinking that to myself and going and serving a cause that was bigger than myself. And so I joined the Marine Corps in 2004, infantryman by trade, 0313, which is a light armored reconnaissance crewman. And I did 2 deployments to Iraq, 1 deployment to Afghanistan. I went on the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit to Haiti in 2010. There was a big earthquake and really rocked the infrastructure of the country, or of Port-au-Prince in that area. So did some humanitarian assistance there. And I got out after 12 years. Most people don't do that, right? Most people will stay in. If they do more than 8, they're usually going to go all the way to 20. And that wasn't me. I thought about getting out after 8 years and I didn't. And I said, 8 years is a long time. I'm married. I have 2 kids. And is this really what I want to be doing for the next 8 years, for my family? And I loved the Marine Corps. I loved what I did. And there was never a question about serving my country or staying in versus getting out for the fact that I liked what I did, because I did. But it was more of a fact of like, if I'm going to raise my family, I want to be the best dad I could be, best husband I could be. And as much as I love the Marine Corps, and there's others that can do it, so I'm not sitting here trying to bash anybody that stays in. But for me and my family at that time, I felt like it was time for me to go. So we moved to Nashville in 2016. I started school. I studied social entrepreneurship. I got that degree in 2018, I believe, and literally hit the ground running. I was really fortunate to be able to launch a veteran business outreach center in conjunction with the Small Business Administration and an organization called Pathway Lending here in Nashville. Really what I focused on was helping veterans and their spouses access capital for their businesses with the financial institution. And I provided education, mentorship, and training for the folks that were going through our programs. I did that for almost 5 years. And I oversaw the states of Tennessee and Kentucky. So that center is still in existence. It's on its second director. I was the founding director, and was able to transition out of that. I got into marketing as a marketing director for an organization called Bunker Labs in 2021, and spent some time there and kind of eventually became the right-hand man to the CEO, Blake Hogan, and helped him with various things across the nonprofit. And it was about mid 2020, how fast time goes, mid 2024, where I felt like, it was time to go do something else, so I started Forward Brands, and I got involved with Warrior Rising. So I've been doing those since about June of 2024, around about time frame. But the emphasis has always kind of been the same. It's always been the same through line with different organizations or what have you, or my own. But it's always been founders. It's always been entrepreneurs, and it's always been helping them with the things that they need to be able to succeed. And then not only helping with that, but then being one myself. As with Forward Brands, and trust me, man, it's a lot harder whenever you're doing it versus trying to tell others what they need to be doing. And it's not a knock to anyone that's just helping others do what they need to do, because it's always easier when you're further away from it. But when it's yours, it can be very difficult, and so really, I guess if there's anything to glean from on that for anyone that's listening, it's like, hey, don't be afraid to get outside of your business every once in a while. You need to work on it, not just in it. And whenever you're having a hard time working on it, you need some second and third opinions of some trusted confidants that'll help you, because sometimes we're just a little too close to it.
It's I need to hear that. I need to hear that with my own business just now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's yeah, because I feel like I'm nonstop working, and the one problem with living off grid, we just had a freeze happen,
Yeah.
and all my water, everything froze. My water heater that I finally got installed busted, so I had to drain the whole system and leave it all alone right now because I actually was working a SHOT Show in Vegas. I end up doing stepping in and doing media
Awesome.
interviews there for 4 days straight, which was fantastic. But it's just everything. Yeah, it's definitely something I need to hear. One thing I want to touch on is so you were a troublemaker, and
Yeah.
and I was also a troublemaker. And what I do on Saturdays is I actually mentor troubled youth in Vegas, court ordered kids. And I think one of the biggest things I always try to get across to them is what you don't understand is I love talking to troublemakers.
That's right.
Because your minds, at least you're getting out and doing stuff. If you took the minds and you took the smarts you get from the streets and you put it into entrepreneurship, it's the same thing, just legal with a suit and tie.
Yeah, I love it. No, man, that's really awesome, and good on you for doing that, because I think more than anything, what's important is that kids sometimes just need mentorship. They just need to feel understood. And a lot of the times when you have kids getting in trouble or whatever, they're just really reaching out. That's their way of like pleading for help. And they just don't know how to go about it. So I think that it's important to have the right folks speaking in the lives of young folks, because we need it. It's good.
And then the next point was the 9/11.
Yeah.
Where were you when 9/11 happened?
I was in the hallway in my high school, man. I'm pretty sure I was going to use the restroom without like a hall pass. You know what I mean? And they're like, you need to get back in the room. They're turning on the TV. Something really bad just happened. So I was like, oh, wow. Yeah.
I was in woodshop class of 9th grade. And I remember sitting down watching and feeling pretty much exactly the same as you were saying. I remember because I joined in 2005 as soon as I graduated, and you were in 2004.
Yep.
So, yeah, I remember that exact feeling. And when you touched on that hit something for me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So one big thing that we love to touch on here on this podcast is the moment. And I call the moment is there's a moment, and I feel like it was you touched on it with I feel like your moment was the kids or the military, and there's this moment in everybody's life that leads them to their path where they have to make a tough decision, where it's this huge decision that and I really, really would love to dive deeper on that moment for you and all the things that were around it that happened.
Yeah, man. Well, there is always one moment, and that's a really awesome question. And I will caveat and say that I don't even know if I used caveat right, over here trying to sound all fancy. I will say that there's multiple moments. I've had multiple moments, but there is one, that really sticks out. And for me, it really probably was that decision to leave the military. Because the reality is I really loved what I did. I didn't get out because I hated it. You hear about most people getting out of the Marine Corps or the military, they're done, they've had it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't wait to get out kind of thing, or you have others, they're like, yeah, I did my time, I did it honorably, and I'm ready to move on. And that's great too. Like, I was like a lifer, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I knew from the moment I joined, like, I was like, this is it. And sure, there was ups and downs in that, but even like in my first enlistment, it was like, I was that guy that was like, oh, they called me Odie back in the day. You know, that was my nickname. They're like, Odie's going to freaking re-enlist. Odie's a lifer. You know, and it was true. You know what I mean? I loved it. It was the best job I ever had, you know? And at that time, you know, when it was my last 4 years, I was a combat instructor at the School of Infantry at Camp Pendleton, California. And that's when, like, really there was a lot of professional development in my career. You know, like, I wasn't deploying. They were sending me to schools, you know, not only that, but I was going to community college, you know, and I really started to question a lot, you know, like just why, and not because I was being belligerent, but I mean, like, I'm like, there's probably better ways to do this stuff, you know, and I just kind of started to get a little bit curious about what was out there, you know. On top of that, you know, I just felt this like leading, you know, that it was time to go. And if I go even deeper in Tennessee, where I'm at now, you know, like my family, my wife's family's here, and like there were some things that were happening that we wanted to be there for them. You know? And so you put all that in a blender, and you kind of come up with like, well, it's safe if I stay in. And what was crazy was I'm over here talking about it's safe if I stay in, right? But at the same time, I'm about to go back to the fleet, worldwide deployable. Anything could happen, and this is for everybody that's in, right? Like sometimes we think that it's safer to stay in when the reality is you can go to combat any time, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, man, I mean, my daughter was born. I was in Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan when my youngest was born. I missed her birth. And my oldest, you know, I missed a lot of her formative years. You know what I mean? And I'm like, 8 years is a long time. So you have all this stuff that's going on. That's it. And I don't know if I want to miss that stuff. You know, and just for being safe with a paycheck, like I'm a smart guy. I think I could figure this out. You know, there's people that have gone before me and done
it. Yeah. So I've been out for 15 years now.
Yeah.
I got out in 2009. Then I went reserves for a couple of years, but you know, but I got out in 2009. I still, even last night, have dreams about going back to Iraq because it's simpler, and so like the whole play it safe. It's I completely agree with that about it's like it's safe to stay here, and even with the combat, all that risk, I think for soldiers or Marines, people like us, that is safety to us because it's what we know.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I always say that that if you want to know what the next thing to do is, what are you afraid of?
Yeah. It's good. And I can respect that because usually on the other side of that, there's always a struggle. There's always something you're going to have to get through. It's like we're ingrained with that. Like even as a kid playing video games or even as a kid watching a movie, there was always like the final boss, you know? And like you had to get through the final boss to get to the next thing. But then it was like, oh, psych, you're not done. There's always something else.
Yeah.
And that's really the gist, man. I know that's oversimplifying it, but like there's always going to be something that you have to get through, and it doesn't stop. You know? And I'm not just talking entrepreneurship. I'm talking about life. You know, like we talk about military transition, but the reality is you're always in transition. There's always a new season. There's always something on the horizon that you're not ready for. And you hope that your experiences have at least equipped you to get to that edge of your comfort zone, to take that step, to go do whatever it is that's next, whether that be leaving the military, starting your business, and not only starting your business, but then there's like when I say problems, I shouldn't say problems, probably challenges. Let's say challenges. But you got to figure out a lot of things. You're always on the edge of that discomfort. It's like, okay, now I got to make my first hire. okay, now I got to figure out how to replace that person that I believed was irreplaceable. Now I gotta figure out this tax stuff because I learned that it was this from all these people, but now I'm going through it and it's not necessarily the exact same way as they said it would be. And so you're always a little uncomfortable, but hey, it makes you feel alive. Like
Yeah.
My wife and I were just talking, and there's some stuff that's been happening and things that are going on, and sometimes you're just getting it from every direction. And she was being very supportive, like, everything good? Are you good? I'm like, yeah, like whenever I feel this way, it just reminds me that I'm alive, you know, and like I get to do this, and it's not to be over like positive, but like, dude, like I get to do this. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking to you on a podcast right now. Like
Yeah.
I get to do this. And sometimes we can just really forget. We can forget that. I am one of those people. I can forget it, and I don't want to. I want to remember it.
So we gotta say in the military, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And when I really, really started, like, it was funny because a lot of the stuff I learned in the military didn't really hit until like a few years ago. And suddenly I'm just like, I want to call up my old staff sergeant. I want to be like, hey, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
And but it's embrace the suck. And there's moments where you're just in it, and everything is kind of going around and falling apart. You're late on bills, you're late on this, and everything's on your shoulders. But then there's this calm that you find. And that's something I wasn't sure if that's everybody or if that's a military thing, but there's this calm in the storm that you start to feel. And then you look around and realize this, like, I could be doing nothing right now.
Yeah.
I could be bored out of my mind right now, not feeling like anything's getting done, and just working I could be working a job at McDonald's and just getting by. And it's like, now I'm struggling. I could probably make more money if I worked at McDonald's right now, but at least I feel like everything's happening. Things are moving. It's such a visceral, amazing
It
feeling.
is, man. It is. And the best way it was always illustrated to me, and I always illustrate it the way it was illustrated to me, was in life there's peaks and valleys, and the peaks actually aren't meant to stay on. If you actually look at peaks in real life, like mountaintops in real life, they're a lot more scarce, than the actual valley. The valley is the tough part, but in the valley you have absolutely everything you need. That's where the vegetation is, that's where the growth is, that's where the water runs. That's where everything. And in real life, I'm not just saying this philosophically, like in real life, you go out right now and look at the terrain right now, the valleys are where the growth is. And so, like, I'm always reminding myself of that. Like, whenever there's valleys, you keep freaking moving, you keep walking through it. You got everything you need. You enjoy the view from the mountaintop, but you're going right back down. You're going to do another climb. You might be on the ridge line for a while before you go back down.
Yeah.
But if you're going to keep growing, you got to keep moving, right? And it's not all going to be hilltops.
That was an amazing, like that. I'm keeping that one. That hit.
Keep it. Share it as if it was your idea.
All right. Well, that's what we do, anyways, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, now since you just started Forward Brands back in June,
yeah,
tell me a little bit about that journey, because there's not many times that I get to speak with someone who's still in that first year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had my best month this month. You know what I mean? It's been a great month. But I will tell you, the first 3 months, you get real motivated. You're doing all the things that I said to do. I did it, and I'm walking myself through it. And then you realize, like, I think the hardest part is, like, am I doing the right things? You ask yourself, am I doing the right things? And there's a slippery slope to that, because you got to give it enough time to, like, see if that's true. But whenever you're looking at the leads or the sales that are happening, you're like, am I doing the right things? So you got to be patient enough to be able to let those things play out and know when it's time to adjust. So that's what I did for about the first 3.5 months. I was actually very focused on helping nonprofits with their overall programming, their overall, like, really what I wanted to do was bring their fund development efforts, their programming, and their marketing together as like one cohesive unit. So they were all on the same page. And I have a playbook to do that because that's like a big challenge that we have in the nonprofit space sometimes. And not just the nonprofit space, but the for profit space. Like, is sales and marketing talking? And do they know what they're selling? And do they know what they're marketing? Right. And so I was like, yeah, I could help with that. We've got some frameworks for that. So, and campaign messaging was a big part of that. Recruitment for programs was a big part of that. So that's that marketing vein. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not having fun with this. Like, I enjoy the messaging, I enjoy the messaging. And why don't I just do what I love doing? And it's what I'm being asked to do anyway, which is just focusing on the marketing message. So that was the first 4 months, right? And then as I started to get more people, I changed the website, changed everything up, went back and through everything. And then it was like everyone was asking me to do the messaging, but it was what we talked about. It's like, well, hey, do you know what you're asking me to do? Like, who am I speaking to? Like, if I'm going to do this for you, I want to make sure that the message hits, like and that it's going to be successful for you. And what I found was, like, a lot of people were like, well, I haven't really spent a lot of time on my brand strategy. I'm just really need sales now, and I didn't want to be that guy. So I went back and was like, you know what? That's the problem. Love all you marketing agencies out there, but it was like, well, that's the problem. As founders get in a rush and they want to go get a quick fix, so they bring in a marketing agency, and the marketing agency says yes, and now they're pumping ads out and doing all this stuff, and they're wondering why their messages aren't converting and people aren't booking. So I just said to myself, I really don't want to do that. Let me just focus on brand strategy, because what's happening is when people ask me to write a message, they don't even know who it's for. So I would rather just go through this process with them, shoulder to shoulder. And that's where I've really started to find the success. It's like, okay, now I've been working with some clients, and things sometimes that feel so simple to you are actually what the people love, your customers love the most. And it's like, wait, to me, that was easy. That was like a no brainer. That's what you liked. And they're like, yeah, this is game changing. And it's like, okay, maybe I just need to focus on that. Like, to me, it was not a big deal. That was just a part of what I did, but that could be the whole thing, And so I think it's just being mindful and keeping your eyes on the ball, because we got to get beyond ourselves. And then that first year, you're still learning and adjusting. And it's just a matter of doing the right things, focusing on the right activities, and having the patience to let those things play out, and the courage to know when to cut it,
Yeah, we had one big issue where I was trying to save people money. And what I learned was, I had a client, I tried to save her a ton of money. I only was making like an $800 profit on this, and I'm designing a grid for her. And I end up, and I made the dumb mistake of, well, I'll guarantee it for 1 year. You call, I come.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So I was living at that place. And the thing was they would reset it before I could come and test it with all these problems they said that they were having. And
Yeah.
and it was just back and forth. And then they wanted a refund 3 months later. So I end up saying, listen, I can't refund the parts. They're already installed. You own them. And I end up giving back the $800 profit that I made, and said, we're good now. But that's when I realized, in the next grid I went to sell, I looked at this man, and this has been my best client yet. like amazing client, just keeps giving me more work and more work. He just trusts me over and over and over again. Like, just not, if I ever want to make money, I just show up on his property and do something and he'll pay me. I looked him dead in the face and I said, you will not have the Hoover Dam in your backyard no matter how much money you give me.
Yeah.
Like, there is no possible way. You will have to adjust your life. You will have to look at the percentages before you do things. You will have to do this. And then he just said $40,000 dropped. He dropped $27,000 deposit, like right then and there. And it was amazing. And that's why I realized now I'm like, I'm going to try to talk you out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few things that, I mean, you just nailed it. Like, I feel like whenever we're just honest and open, like, good things come, right? Like you just did, you'll never have the Hoover Dam in your backyard. Like I did, like, I'm just like, hey, like I could take your money and give you a message, but I'd rather not, because here's what's going to happen if I do. You're going to love it. I'm going to love it, but it's not going to resonate with who you're trying to sell to if you don't know who that is. Like, there's no shortcuts. I'd rather just do it the right way. And sure, we might get lucky. You know what I mean? Like, you might get that one, but I'm just the kind of guy I'd rather just like set you up for success in the long run, so you don't need me to write these anymore. Like, I can give you a playbook of everything that you need to know, and so you can make a hire someday and they know the overall constitutional message of your organization.
Exactly. And it's always, well, actually, really quick, I want you to plug your website, plug all your information, because if anybody who's listening, which I assume there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that definitely could use your help and your services, go ahead and let us know where they can find you.
Sure. Like, you can go to forwardbrands.us. The US is a nod to the military, right? Military service, but forwardbrands.us, that's my website. Check me out there. On LinkedIn, first name Reggie, Reggie, last name Ordonez, Ordonez. Would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I do my best to be consistent on LinkedIn. It's a never-ending game of how much time do I have, and also I know it's valuable to share things on LinkedIn. So I definitely try to do that. I have a newsletter that goes out once a month called The Drifter. It's free. And you can subscribe to that on the Forward Brands website. And I usually share tips, tricks on branding. I might give a good old barbecue recipe from time to time because, hey, we need to take it easy on ourselves every once in a while, right? And just some overall wellness tips and everything else. Because look, you can't pour from an empty vessel. You need to just make sure that you're full, so make sure you're taking care of yourself, make sure you're spending good time with your family, because business will always be there. The other memories won't be.
Yeah, I definitely think I need to go on there and get some stuff, because lately, yeah, I've been behind on work. Yeah, so man. I have like all this money to make, and I'm behind on bills, and my work kind of got pushed out a little bit. So it feels like every day I'm waking up and I'm like I got to get to this. I got to get to this. I got to get to that. I got to get to this. And then ends up just stressing me out, and things don't get done. And it's yeah. That's so right. I've been doing meditation though, first thing in the morning.
Hey, that's good, man. I do. So my thing is, I'm a Christian, but I also, like, physically, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so been doing jiu-jitsu for the last, I don't even know how long now, over a decade. Off and on for military service and everything else. But I mean, it just keeps me active, keeps me focused, gives that competitive drive. And at the same time, I get to have fun, so I feel like everybody needs some kind of hobby to where they can go and just kind of shut their brain off for a little bit and just have a good time, and that doesn't always need to be the bottle, and it doesn't always need to be the pills, it's got to be, go get active, sweat, and take good care of yourself, because I mean, you only get one body,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's we've been running into the issues of being so remote.
Yeah, for sure.
But when I drive into Vegas, I think I figured this out. when I drive into Vegas to do my mentoring, I got a pistol replica airsoft pistol that's exactly like the Beretta M9A4 that I train with, and it kicks the same way, everything.
Yeah.
And I showed up at an airsoft field with one magazine, 26 rounds, and I had to do like 3 or 4 rounds in a row before you can kind of go back to get ammunition.
Yeah.
And I was actually able to last the entire 3 rounds with only 26 rounds in there because everybody was spraying, but everybody was like, you're a veteran, but you've never done airsoft and all this stuff. And I showed up there and I just did the flanking maneuver they taught us in basic, where everybody decides to go forward. I just sneak around the back and start popping them from behind.
Love it. Hey, that's always a good way to shut your mind off too. Like, just go pop some rounds, you know?
Yeah.
Good.
But anyways, though, so is there anything else that you would like to leave the audience with, or anything else that you would like to say? Because I know that I have here on my notes just so many awesome quotes. Like I was reading through all the quotes that you've done and the things that you've said, and it inspired. Like, I was so excited for this interview because it just inspired me. So, is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
There's never going to be a perfect time. You know, there's just never going to be a perfect time, because it's just that. And if it doesn't happen like right away, like if you ever feel like you've missed your shot or you missed your moment, like sometimes I believe that there's a lot of growth that happens beneath the surface. You know, like you look at, I always go back to nature. I don't know why, man. I love the outdoors. So you got to deal with me. But like when you see a tree grow, right? Like before it ever sprouts and breaks ground, man, like those roots are running deep. You know, so like not all growth is visible growth. There's things that you're probably going through and things that you're probably feeling like you missed something, but the reality is there's a lot of growth that's happening in you, you know, and there will be a moment where that growth sprouts, you know what I'm saying? And people could see it and you could see it, and when I say see it, it's not that people don't see that growth beneath the surface. I'm just talking more about these opportunities, like growing a big company or getting a killer deal or being on a podcast or being on a keynote speaking, like the things that people actually can see and watch, you know, like that'll come. You're just being prepared for your moment, you know, and so we just got to seize those things and take them and own them, you know, and know that it's all for good, man.
That's right. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Reggie. I really, really appreciate you spending time here and speaking with us. And I look forward to the business shower with Warrior Rising, because
Yeah,
I know that there's a selection process, but I like to be the best. So I always
yeah,
just
man.
tell myself it already happened, and it's already happened. All it is just the steps between there.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, hey, thank you for having me, man. This was great. I had a really good time. Great conversation, man. And I wish you nothing but the best. And thanks.
Awesome. You as well. Thank you so much, Reggie.
You too, man.